Al, let's start with roll call.
Benson.
Here.
Startup. Here. Hoffner.
Here.
Ibon. Minor.
Here.
Mosier.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Manager Leon.
Here.
City Attorney Denver.
Here.
Well, thank you everyone for being here tonight. We are going to discuss the Great Life Fox Run Golf Course contract. But before we do that, let's start with public appearances. So if there's anyone here who would like to speak to the commission about something that is not on the agenda, we'd ask that you step to the podium to address us. All right, seeing no one rushing to the podium, we'll move on to the Great Life contract, and we'll start with Ross Denherter, the city attorney, walking us through the proposed agreement.
On the Dropbox, you guys should find a copy of the current lease draft that we're working from, along with a summary of this lease. I do intend to rely heavily on the summary. If you need written copies, if you have trouble finding that, there are some down here in front. I wanted to start by going through the purposes or the goals that we had initially set out to accomplish by putting this together. And that list was actually created and attached as Exhibit A to this lease, so it's clear what we were trying to accomplish with this effort. It's page 14 of the document if you want to pull it up in front of you. But our goals for entering into this lease with Great Life are to provide a guaranteed annual payment, or at least a limitation of losses, to the city for operation of the golf course through a turnkey operating lease. So it is fully leased by Great Life with little to no responsibility by city staff. We're hoping to provide the citizens of Yankton with a great and affordable customer experience, including the ease of obtaining tee times, enhancement of the golf facilities, a goal of eliminating or reducing future taxpayer support for the golf course operations, limiting the city's expenditure in the growth by efficient golf course management, ensuring that the golf course assets, both existing and new, are properly maintained, and continuing capital improvements and timely maintenance, working with the leaseholder to develop a comprehensive capital improvement plan, and maintain highly effective customer communication and support in the operation of a public golf course, and to continue to provide leagues, tournaments, outings, and other types of organized play and programming while maintaining good public access to the course. Those were the list of goals that we had nailed down before we started negotiating with Great Life, and we think we've accomplished these with the effort that was put into the drafting of this lease. So going through the summary here, I'm going to hit the highlights of each of these paragraphs because the document is fairly lengthy. There's 13 pages of lease that have been condensed into 3 for you. So if anybody wants me to cover anything in more detail, please slow me down and I will take you through the actual language, which should provide you that extra detail that you're looking for. So under paragraph 1, Great Life is leasing the entire golf course premises, not just the course, but all the buildings, the cart storage facilities, everything that's out there is Great Life's responsibility. This is a 4-year lease agreement. The term may be modified, extended, reduced, renewed in any way through written agreement of the parties. There's kind of a general understanding throughout this document that if there's problems, we can hammer out amendments to this thing. It just has to be agreed in writing between the parties. The total lease payment each year is $40,000. The agreement requires Great Life to tender what we call a performance bond, and that's essentially security for the faithful performance of the 4 years of this agreement. So if something catastrophic were to happen to Great Life and they immediately pull out, the city is going to have to scramble and presumably incur a great deal of costs trying to get the course operational in the absence of Great Life. And that bond is essentially an insurance policy that we can fall back on to cover those costs. It was a technique that the city of Sioux Falls was going to require Great Life if they had obtained the contract to operate the 3 public courses up there, and we borrowed that concept and applied it here. Great Life operates the course and clubhouses as an independent contractor. So again, this establishes the legal relationship. They are not operating this course for the city. They're operating the course as a tenant, or essentially they're leasing the course as a business enterprise. They cannot sublease any portion of the golf course operations without the city's approval. Paragraph 5 contains a whole number of it's essentially the bullet point obligations that Great Life needs to comply with in the operation of the course. This is really the meat of the agreement. Under paragraph 5.1, they must provide a full-time golf pro to manage and a full-time maintenance superintendent to maintain the grounds. Under paragraph 5.2, they must maintain and manage all buildings, including the cart storage buildings, and they are responsible for routine maintenance. Significant repairs and capital improvements are likely to have some cost sharing with the city. There's a paragraph later on that we'll discuss that governs how that will work. But there is a framework that is in here providing for permissible use of private carts. After some extended negotiations, we were able to get Great Life to agree that if you have a Great Life membership with golf privileges at the course and you pay trail fees, you can have your private cart at Great Life, regardless if you've had a membership in the past. As long as if you pay the fees and you get the membership, you'll be able to have your cart at Great Life, or at Fox Run. Great Life must provide some form of food service at the clubhouse. Under paragraph 5.4, they must promote and market the course. And the goal is to increase the game in Yankton, increase the playability of the course and the desire for people to use it. They must use reasonable efforts to host tournaments, existing or otherwise. They must try to foster course usage and provide lessons. And they must enhance and promote leagues. As it relates to their cooperation with other entities, currently the course is used by Mount Marty College and the high school for cross-country meets and for their golf teams. They must allow that to continue. For the public school district, that's got to be done free of charge. They must maintain working relationships with the city and the public. That will be essential for this to work out in the long run. They're off to a pretty good start, by the way. They've been really good to work with. They must prohibit smoking in all of the buildings on the premises, and they need to enforce that ban. They must maintain an alcohol license sufficient to allow for beer sales on the premises. They must provide and maintain security equipment for all of the buildings. They have to operate in a way that follows the law, and they're not allowed to discriminate. They must maintain and improve the accessibility of the facilities for the disabled. They must provide the city with course usage and financial data upon request. Upon 30 days' notice, they have to share essentially their books with us. There's an understanding in the agreement that it's an open book arrangement, and the documents that they share with us will be public record, and that's for us to determine and essentially keep on top of the financial viability of our asset, because it remains the city's property. They have the obligation to update the website or social media to inform the public of events and things, announcements and things of that nature going on out at Fox Run. They'll work with city staff. We're not entirely sure how that's going to work out yet. I think it may just be a matter of them taking control of the city's announcements, social media, and stuff like that, or it could just be at our website when people go visit the Fox Run. It will kick over to their site. Somehow they have to provide online information to folks that are interested. We'll figure out how that will work. And they must honor unredeemed gift certificates and shop credit that the city has already been paid for or has been given out, as the case may be, and the city will reimburse Great Life for whatever those charges are, because the city has already received payment for those. Under paragraph 6, Great Life accepts the course as is and agrees to maintain the course and facilities and remove any litter. Great Life must follow specific maintenance guidelines, and those are attached as exhibits B and C to the agreement if you want to go through those in detail. Very explicit instructions for how the course is to be maintained, which have been worked out by Todd, Rocky, and Great Life staff. The city will continue to handle snow removal and garbage collection when the course or clubhouse is open for business. So there may be, at some point in the future, a situation where the course isn't operational in the winter or something like that, in which case we don't need to remove snow. But if it's going to be open for business, we'll take care of it. We're taking care of that street out in front of it anyway. Great Life may use, but if they do, they shall maintain the city's equipment intended for use at the course. When the equipment wears out, the city may surplus and sell that equipment. If the city pays for any portion of replacement equipment, the city keeps it, absent a written agreement between the parties. Great Life is not permitted to make significant alterations exceeding the cost of $5,000 to the property without city approval. And all improvements are owned by the city unless otherwise agreed in writing. And the city is free to conduct maintenance audits and site inspections upon reasonable notice. As it relates to capital improvements, Great Life and the city will work together to maintain a 5-year capital improvement plan, just as it relates to the course. For 2019 capital improvements, those will remain the city's responsibility. Cost sharing with Great Life begins in the year 2020, with Great Life picking up 25% of the capital improvement costs, and the city's costs are capped at $75,000. If Great Life wants to do additional improvements at their own cost, they're free to do so with approval from the city. Beginning in 2021 and all subsequent years, the cost sharing for capital improvements is split 50-50, with the city's expenses capped at $50,000. Again, if Great Life wants to do additional improvements, they can over and above that at their own expense with city approval. Great Life is responsible for overseeing capital improvements, and they must comply with all bidding laws if there is an improvement that triggers bidding if the cost exceeds those thresholds set out in state statute. And again, all improvements remain city property unless otherwise agreed. Under paragraph 8, Great Life must utilize an architect or engineer if any improvements or repairs end up requiring any sort of structural change or for new construction. Under Section 9, Great Life is responsible for all utilities, service contracts, taxes, and employee expenses, excepting only the existing cart lease and the cart screen subscription service, whatever that may be. Currently, we are utilizing that Shark Experience, if you remember. We're looking at peeling back the Shark Experience and going with a lesser service, or perhaps even in a different screen system entirely to reduce those ongoing costs. So we're still working through that, but whatever those costs are, the city will maintain. And then once the cart lease is over in 4 years, that corresponds with the termination of this lease. We'll be able to renegotiate. And Great Life is already, I think the expectation is they'll take on that responsibility in 4 years, whatever that will be. I'm not speaking out of school with that, am I, Don? Okay. Paragraph 10 is an extensive list of obligations for maintaining insurance coverage of various sorts and those related minimum limits that Great Life must provide in the operation of its course. Paragraph 11 is the list of grounds in which a default occurs. And that default could exist for any failure to perform any obligation under the agreement, a failure to provide any report or notice that's required to be shared with the city under the terms of this agreement, failure to properly maintain the course per the minimum guidelines set out in Exhibits B and C. There's a reasonable basis to believe an assurance or commitment may not be met. If we start getting letters indicating that Great Life is not financially viable anymore, there's ways that could come to our attention without a clear violation. If we know it's coming, we wouldn't want to stick our head in the sand. Failure to apply city funds is earmarked. If there's a cost sharing on an obligation, we give it to Great Life and they decide not to use it for that earmarked purpose, that would be a default. If Great Life were to become bankrupt or insolvent, there's any act that is fraudulent or misleading. And then under the sub-provision in defaults, if there is a default, there is an obligation for the parties to sit down and try to mediate to a resolution, whatever the problem might be. And if a resolution cannot be negotiated within the time frames set out therein, we would have good cause for termination. Termination is the next section. Under paragraph 12, the agreement may be terminated for good cause. Well, good cause is the failure to cure a default within 30 days of the mediation, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Failure to cure a default within 30 days of notice or upon failure of the mediation. If we get together and we can't work it out, or if we just never get together in 30 days, if it's not fixed after notice, we can terminate if we wish. If there's a dissolution of Great Life with the South Dakota Secretary of State, that means under state law they've lost their lawful permission to do business within the state. If that were to occur, we could terminate the agreement. If there is any dishonest, illegal, or immoral conduct by Great Life employees, persistent or repeated violations of the law by Great Life staff, if Great Life actually filed for bankruptcy, in addition to being a default, it's also grounds for us to immediately proceed into termination if we wish. If Great Life abandons or discontinues its business operations at Fox Run. If there is intentional damage to the course or facilities by Great Life employees or agents, or I threw in a catch-all, a, quote, substantial breach of the lease. It's just kind of open-ended. Everything's gone to pot. At that point, we can terminate. But if there is a termination, there's an expected 180-day exit window, so we have hopefully time for organized transition rather than just locking it up and walking away. I don't expect we would ever get to this point, and from what we've seen for the last few months here, I would be shocked if there even was a split that it wouldn't be a nice, smooth transition, because these guys have been great to work with, but at least we've got a landing strip there to use. And then under the miscellaneous provisions at the end of the agreement, there's an expectation or an understanding that all materials submitted under this agreement are public and subject to disclosure. That also goes for the financial records for Great Life that are provided to the city upon request. Of course, those are expected to be just Yankton-specific records. Agreements may be renegotiated and amended by the parties in writing at any time, and the parties are going to agree to negotiate in good faith. So if there are issues, we will sit down and try to resolve them before they become problems. Great Life indemnifies the city for claims relating to its management or acts of its employees. So if there are business-related liabilities because the city owns the property, if we get sued, we can tender a request for indemnification to Great Life, and they would have an obligation to defend the city. And there's no assignment or transfer of this agreement without the city's written approval. So that is 13 pages of contract in condensed form. Do you guys have any questions, or is there any provision we need to hammer down a little harder at this point?
Jake, Stephanie, and Bridget, you worked really closely with staff and Great Life on this. Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, it was a good process. I want to thank the public that got involved. Special thanks to the Fox Run Golf Advisory Board. And if there's such a thing as good government, we sat down and we spent a lot of time on this. And although it'll never be perfect, obviously, but I think we had the opportunity to listen and learn and change, and appreciate the Great Life staff working with our group, and many meetings, and I just feel confident. At the beginning I was reluctant, but I think that we have a good option ahead of us. I know there'll be tweaking, there always is. I just want to thank everybody involved, and I'm looking forward to working with Great Life. It's almost to the point where we got to play it out. And I know that there's still concerns about certain areas, and I know there's golfers out there watching, and to see if how this is going to work out. I'm excited about their service, their element of that they have going on. As we toured a couple of years ago in Sioux Falls and seeing all their facilities, whether it's from exercise to golf and fitness to swimming to playing pool. You guys have a lot going on, but one thing we saw consistent is the customer service. I know if their employees, if there was a gum wrapper, didn't pick it up, they'd be in trouble. Little things like that. So I'm looking forward to that aspect, and I'm confident that we have a good relationship established already, and I'm looking forward to playing it out. And hopefully we'll attract some, maybe Bob Novotny takes on Daryl Sunleaf like Tiger Woods and Mickelson, huh? Bring some big people in. That's you, Daryl. You're going to play Bob in a championship match. Anyway, thanks everyone for being involved, and I feel pretty good about moving forward. But I'm also want to be ready to change some things that we have to make it the best we can.
We'll get to some public input here in a little bit. Thank you.
How do we might have covered this before and I didn't catch it. How do we cover the golf board then, being appointed by someone from the mayor, appointing some people, but I don't know, was that covered in here?
That was going to be one of my clarification questions. I didn't know if it's something that had to be in a lease agreement, but I know in our last meeting, both Don and Jason were there, that they had said, obviously they want, I think they would like a group like that to still be a sounding board and to give them input on how it goes, but I would turn it over to one of them to see or clarify how they do that with their other courses.
Downhill with Great Life. We have maintained at other courses whatever structure was in place for input. The best example is in Hartford at Central Valley. They had a board beforehand. They were nonprofit, and their board has remained as an advisory board to us for operation of the course, including what kind of changes you want to see, capital improvements you would like to see, all those kind of things. And we would like to maintain some kind of a structure in place. We think it makes most sense to keep the current advisory board in place right away, and then if we need to modify it, of course that would be, we'd discuss it with you and as we move forward.
But I don't know if that's anything that has to be in the lease, Ross?
No, that's in fact in a prior draft that was in there, and based on Don's representation that they want to have the existing or a similar sort of advisory board, we peeled it out. It's their intention anyway, so.
I guess I would also clarify in meetings when we talk about capital improvements, and I think Don hit on that a little bit. Capital improvements, not only money-wise, is shared, but also what gets approved to be done, correct?
Yeah, there's no capital improvements without the city's approval, at least in excess of $5,000.
Right, I understand that, but in the agreement of how the money is spent, right? That's a partnership
Yeah,
that Don just
on
kind of
an
referenced
annual
would be from
basis,
the-
yeah.
Okay.
In the
I
first
just
year,
wanted to clarify that, because I know we talked a lot about that at meetings.
right, and in the first year, there's no need to cooperate with Great Life because it's all the city's responsibility the first year. But after that, yeah, the improvement plan is done by cooperation of the parties.
It's probably also important to point out in regards to capital improvements that there's a certain parts of the course that we want to, I mean, obviously we're going to participate 100% the first year, but if you look at different areas of capital improvements, we want that we want to keep our course. Like for instance, cart paths or trees, some of that thing, that enhances and maintains the value of our more value added in our course. Now there's certain things like lawnmowers, I know they depreciate down, but we have I think we have a responsibility to maintain the course still at a high level, and part of that is going to be controlled by us improving the capital, and that I think is value added so I think we can't calculate it all as a like it just costs that much to run the course, but also we'd have to maintain it anyway, so calculate that.
And did we get anything in here on the emerald ash borer? I'm trying to read quickly through it all again. I know we talked about it at our last meeting.
Under number 9, integrated pest management guidelines, the goal is to have the city of Yankton Fox Run Golf Course weed and insect free as possible and to prevent any damaging outbreak of pests. The leaseholder's approach to the control of damaging pests and weeds will include curative and preventative types of control measures using the most appropriate products available. The removal of ash trees on the course due to the spread and eventual infestation by the emerald ash borer will remain the responsibility of the city of Yankton as a part of its EAB mitigation plan. So we've talked about that. We need to get an inventory of all the trees out there and locations, and then from that point work forward to get the ash trees down and replace trees out there as we're doing it. So it's probably going to be similar to what we're doing throughout the city. We've kind of got a 6-year plan in place. We'll do the similar thing out at Fox Run to make sure that we're not clear cutting the entire course and starting with all new trees in that year 1. So.
Does the commission have any more discussion on this? This may be a good time to ask Don, do you have any comments you would like to share with the commission about this process and the agreement that's been proposed?
Well, I would like to echo the cooperative nature of these discussions and negotiations. I think that the city's been great to work with as well, and understands where we're coming from and is willing to listen to us. We're really happy with the opportunity to provide Yankton with a course that over time it's not going to cost you any money. We think that's a good step for municipal golf all over all over the state, and I think you guys are the leaders there, and I've been impressed with your willingness to be the leaders in that, because it's a big step, and I realize where you're coming from. I think we're happy. Jason and Matt have been working down here, mainly Matt, Jason where needed, and we're happy with the interaction that Matt has had with your golfing public, and we're looking forward to that continued great relationship. And they've welcomed him, and we're happy that we think it's a great opportunity for us, and it's a great opportunity for you.
Thank you, Don. Now, is there anyone from the audience who would like to address the commission about tonight's topic? If so, we'd ask that you step to the podium, identify yourself for us, and ask away.
Bob Novotny, golfer, and I used to work at the prison, and the prison provided the golf course with lots of inmate labor. Now, this usually went to cities or, city governments or government entities that use these guys fairly cheap, and they did a lot of work. Now, if we're going into a lease, are we going to be out of that kind of a labor pool?
Yes,
Okay, so you'll be hiring more people. Good.
Great Life will.
So that's
And
great.
we use inmate labor for other departments as well, so we still be
Yeah.
able to utilize
I used to
them.
put them there.
Okay, so that's
know.
the answer. But at the golf course, correct.
They won't be there anymore.
Correct.
That's the only thing I want to know.
Regarding the use of inmates, I was the superintendent at Springfield Golf Course for a year, and they are privately owned, and they are a for-profit business. So I called the warden in Springfield and asked how they were able to do it, and he said since the ground was still owned by the state, which is a government agency, they were allowed to take care of that land. So when I talked to the warden, he said, as long as this land is still owned by the city, Great Life would still be able to use inmates. So I think Chris Pearson from the minimum unit was supposed to call and talk to Todd about it. I don't know if he ever contacted you, but
Yeah, he just asked questions of what the arrangement was going to be, what the lease was going to look like. Didn't tell me yes or no whether they would
everything
or
I've
not.
heard back is that it's going to be good to go. So,
Can we ask your name for the record, please?
Jason Metz.
Thank you for that information, Jason. Yep.
My name is Rod Warner. I'm just a golfer, but I've been to a number of the meetings that Great Life has had to inform the public and everything, and I've asked, and nobody seems to be able to give me an answer. What's it going to cost for a round of golf, for membership, or anything like that? Is it going to cost me more? And it sounds like it's going to cost me more to golf this year than it did the last couple of years. So I just wonder if they have any idea on the cost yet, or maybe this isn't the right time to bring it up.
Do you have those numbers yet, Don?
We're still fine-tuning what we will do for cost, but we do know this: we're going to base them off the Great Life prices in Sioux Falls, but we are going to offer at the beginning of 2019 an opportunity for people who join Great Life to lock in at a lower rate, similar to the price for a membership now. Again, we don't have exactly the same categories of membership that you do, but for instance, I looked at it today, what a single person would pay for a golf membership will be within like $5 of that for the year with our initial lock-in rate. So you'll be able to lock it in for that price in also for at least 2 years if you elect to do that, and we'd offer that at the beginning of the year. So the prices will be similar. For instance, in Yankton's membership price, Fox Run's membership price for a couple, we have a couple's membership as well, and the introductory rate will be lower than the couple's rate is here, but your family membership is built on the as an added fee on a couple's membership. So we don't have that kind of we're going to add for a child. We just have a family membership, which will be different and also lower than what it would be for a couple and one child to have a membership. So there will be some differences, but there will be some that they're really close. There'll be some prices lower. So that's what I can tell you right now. We will be offering some lower prices than existing on some of the memberships.
Don, at this point, can you speak to whether there are other partnerships that will be unveiled in the community for the next year? Will there be more to a Great Life membership than the Summit Center or the golf course?
Yes, we do not have a fitness location yet in Yankton, but we will have one. We're working on talking with different people about buildings. And then secondly, other amenities, we'll be looking into things such as, and I don't know for sure if we'll be able to work out deals, for instance, with specific businesses, but in Sioux Falls we've done it with things like the zoo, bowling centers, not only ones that we run, but ones that other people run, things with water sports, those kind of things. We've been able to do that, and so we intend to do that here as well. We want it to be a lifestyle rather than just one or two things. So,
Dawn, I was just wondering, if you lock in at that lower rate in 2019, will you then have the perks of the gym memberships and all those other items, or would that be an additional cost as those get signed on?
That would not be an additional cost. So we're going to offer a lower price than our Sioux Falls prices at the beginning of the year, and that will include whatever we add as far as those similar type of amenities that we have in Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
Any more audience questions? All right, Commission. Is there any more discussion amongst you on tonight's topic? Jake, were you going for your mic or not? No?
As a point of clarification, they are still an affiliate with the SAC. So if you have the Great Life membership, you could still utilize the summit for fitness.
All right, well, if there's no commission issues, this will be on the agenda for our December 10th meeting for consideration. Amy, is there anything else the public should know about the process ahead of us?
No, other than if there's feedbacks or questions or input, you can email me or Todd, and we'll try to get back to you. Not always right away, but try to be communicative so we can share that with the commission prior to them making a decision.
All right. There being no further topics for this agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn until our regular commission meeting at 7 p.m. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned until 7 p.m.